Hello dear students! In our lesson today we're going to deal with reading. More specifically, we will talk about survivals, inventions, and the topic you will see that is going to be very interesting. So let's start. Before dealing with the reading, we're going to see some new words so that it will be much easier then for you to understand the text. So, the different meanings are, as you can see here, so we've got thought of, not to be worried about something, understand, working, a small door, doing or taking part in, getting less and less. These are the meanings. So together, by looking at the different photos and the word, I would like you to think of the possible meaning of the new words. So, take a look at this picture. If you see closely, I'm helping you, this is part of a spacecraft. So, the new word is the word hatch. As you can see, this is a very small opening. So, a hatch is a small door. So, the small door where the astronauts could enter or get out of the spacecraft. Another word that we are going to see is the word or the expression come up with. It's in the past here. So this boy came up with what? As you can see in the picture, he comes up with a new idea. So he thinks of a new idea. He produces a new idea. We are going to find out the expression figure out. When you figure out of something, it means that you understand something. So you figure that out. You understand that. You understand the meaning maybe of something. As we can see, this doctor is on duty. So if you are on duty, it means that you are working. So you are on duty. You are at work. You are working. One more new expression that we're going to see is to breathe a sigh of relief. So as we can see, the man, he's breathing a sigh of relief. That means that now he feels much more relaxed. Now he is not worried anymore. He is not worried. He breathed a sigh of relief. Another word or another expression that we are going to find out is running out. When we run out of something, it means that something is becoming less and less. So we are running out of money, for example. We don't have much money. We are running out of water. We don't have much water. One more expression or one more word that we're going to see together is cheer. When you cheer, as you can see in the photo, it means that you are really happy. So you shout happily. And one more word is carrying out. So when you carry out something, when you carry out a project, for example, or when you carry out a research, it means that you are doing that research. You are taking part in that research. All right. And now that we saw the new vocabulary, we are going to start with our reading comprehension. Reading is not difficult. And don't you think that now that we found the new words, that we understood the new words, it's going to be much easier? Let's read together. The point is to read the small texts every time and to answer the question correctly. Where do we find the answer? In the text, of course. So let's read together. It was the 13th of April, 1970. And of course, the title, because I started reading, is Houston, we have a problem. You will see why. 2 days after the launch of Apollo 13. So Apollo 13, the spacecraft that we saw, it launched, so it started its journey. BBC journalist Reg Turnill was reporting on the mission from the Space Center in Houston. He describes the moment he realized there was a problem with Apollo 13. So there was a problem in the spacecraft. And this is what the journalist is going to report. I looked into mission control just before going to bed. I was going through the door when I heard Jim Lovell say, "Houston, we have a problem." Instead of going to bed, the journalist went back to his desk and stayed there for the next 3 days. Now focus on the question. Reg Turnill found out there was a problem with Apollo 13 when he was sitting at his desk, getting ready for bed, entering mission control, or talking to Jim Lovell. Many times, all of them could be mentioned like names and words in the text, but focus on the question carefully so that we can find the answer in the text. So, when did he find out that there was a problem? When? If you see carefully, it says that I looked into the mission control just before going to bed. So, I was going through the door. So, it's not that he was getting ready for bed, as you might get confused, before going to bed. But he heard that there was something wrong when he says, I was going through the door. So, the correct answer is C, entering the mission control. This word, entering, has the same meaning as going through the door. So be careful, because many times we might get confused by different alternatives, but we need to find the answer in the text exactly. Let's move on reading. Apollo 13's commander, Jim Lovell, together with his colleagues, Fred Hayes and Jack Swigert, were carrying out NASA's third mission. So we said they were carrying out, they were part of the mission, they were involved in the mission, to the moon. Lovell and Hayes were planning to walk on the moon, but this never happened. Nearly 2 days into the flight, things were going so smoothly, so everything was fine, smoothly, fine, no problems, that Joe Kerwin, on duty at mission control, we said that he was on duty, so he was working at the mission control, told the crew, so told the people that were in the spacecraft is in real good shape. We're bored to tears down here. So everything was fine. That's why he felt bored. And we can see the spacecraft. So, focus on the question. The workers at the mission control were planning to walk on the moon, not expecting any problems, working hard when the explosion took place, or concerned about the spacecraft. So, what did we say here? They felt that everything was fine. They felt that they were bored because there was no problem. So for this reason, the correct answer is B. They were not expecting any problems, And of course, we have it underlined. Everything was going so smoothly, we said, so fine, everything fine, and that they were bored to tears in the spacecraft. Let's move on reading. Several hours later, the crew heard a loud explosion. On board the spacecraft, warning lights were flashing. One of the fuel tanks, and we can see what is a fuel tank. So here, it's the fuel that is kept, so the gas probably of the spacecraft, was empty. There was nothing in it. It was empty. And one of them was close to zero. 13 minutes after the explosion, Jim Lovell looked out of the hatch. Remember what we said? That was a hatch. The small door at the spacecraft, we said. Gas was escaping into space. So, focus on the question. The spacecraft lost most of its fuel through the hatch because of the explosion, several hours after the explosion, or very slowly. All of these could be correct, but focus on the question and what is the reason, what is the meaning of this question. So the spacecraft lost most of its fuel. So which is the reason? Why did the spacecraft lost the fuel? What happened here? There was a loud explosion and the tanks, we said, were empty because of that. So the correct answer, it lost its fuel because of the explosion, and we have that one of the fuel tanks was empty and the other almost to zero because of the explosion. All right, let's move on. NASA reacted quickly. They called in all the most experienced astronauts, including Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. They worked day and night with the NASA engineers and the crew of the Apollo 13 to find a solution. Both mission control and the astronauts remained very calm, but by breakfast time, the media were going crazy. Millions of people were following the events on television. The newspapers reported that the astronauts only had a 10% chance of getting home safely. So the chance was very little. Go to the question. NASA engineers did not expect the astronauts to return, were not interested in help from the outside, immediately formed a big team to fix the problem, or continued working as usual. So, what did we read in the beginning? What did the NASA do? Were they interested in solving? Absolutely. So, common sense and our logic says that yes, of course they were interested in finding a solution to the problem. So, immediately they formed a big team. That team that had the engineers, that had the astronauts, the experienced astronauts, so that they could find a solution to this problem. And let's move on. Meanwhile, on board, the astronauts did not discuss the possibility of not returning home. So still they were hoping that something was going to be done about them. They were trying to figure out what was happening. So they were trying to understand what was happening and how to fix it. Supplies of oxygen and water were running out. So oxygen and water, they were running out. There was not much of them. They were finishing. But with the help of the engineers at Mission Control, they came up with a plan. So they came up with they thought of a plan. So the main problem on board was very little oxygen and water, very little light, a lot of gas, or a lot of oxygen and water. Now, of course, you understand that C and D directly they are not correct because they were running out. But go between A and B, B is not mentioned at all, whereas A is very clear in the sentence that we read, that there was very little oxygen and water. It was running out. It was finishing. And let's move on. The spacecraft orbited the moon, so it went around, orbited the moon, using its gravity to return to Earth. As the spacecraft left outer space and re-entered into the Earth's atmosphere, nobody knew whether the astronauts would live or die. Under parachutes, the spacecraft appeared through the clouds, and exhausted workers, very tired, exhausted, at mission control, were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. So finally, they found a solution. They were relaxed now. A solution was found. Raise their hands and cheer. So they raised their hands and they cheered. They shouted happily. The capsule successfully returned to Earth on Friday, the 17th of April, 1970. It splashed down in the Pacific Ocean near Tonga, where a rescue boat was waiting to recover the 3 astronauts. So let's go to question number 6. Where do you think now the text is from? In your text, you might have more general questions. That means that you need to understand the whole text so that you can find out where was this text taken from. From a scientific report, so scientists wrote this. A science fiction story, so a story that is not true, it is science fiction. A magazine article, or a newspaper report on the 17th of April, 1970. So was that a report? It was reporting something? No, actually it is a magazine article. The whole style, how it's written to get the reader's attention shows that it is a magazine article. All right, so that was the text, and I do believe that you found it interesting, really interesting actually. You can find more information about the Apollo 13. You can watch some videos so that you can be much more clear how it worked and what happened. Now, as for question, listening and reading the text again and again, after that, you are going to answer these questions. So, where was Apollo 13 flying to? Why didn't it get there? Who helped the astronauts to solve the problem? And how many days in total did the astronauts spend in space? So, read the questions, read the text again, and answer please those questions. Thank you very much for paying attention. Goodbye.